One. Welcome everybody to this session of the ValuesJam guest session. And we've got more people here than we normally have, which is great. And Dr. Utheri, could I please ask you to introduce the school and tell us about your great work before we ValuesJam?
Okay, thank you very much, Alan. I'm Dr. Utheri Kanayo, and I'm the principal and co-founder of Children in Freedom School. We are an Afrocentric school in Nakuru, Kenya. That's in East Africa. And when I say Afrocentric, it simply means Africa-centered, where we consciously add our African heritage and African identity into our curriculum and our everyday life at school and hopefully at home. So here we are with our wonderful children who are going through this Afrocentric curriculum where they feel proud to be Africans and also interested in the global world, because the African of today should be relevant in the global space. So we are so happy to be in this conversation, in this international space. And I'll hand over to you, Alan, to take it up.
Great, okay. And you're making me wonder, how many languages are there in Africa? Because I'm just wondering, can you imagine the ValuesJam card set in African language, right?
So first of all, before we go to Africa, in Kenya, I think we have over 40 languages, at least 42 languages are acknowledged
Wow.
in the country. When we go to Africa, we're talking about maybe 15,000 language dialects on the continent.
And in Kenya with the language.
And then it should not be assumed that because we're in Africa and because we are Black, yes. Oh, I was adding that it should not be assumed that because we are Kenyans, Black, Africans on the continent, on the ground, that we speak our languages. That's why we have a colonial past. Many countries in Africa have a colonial past and continue living in a colonial space.
Yeah.
And that's why we've consciously gone into Afrocentrism to help decolonize the spaces, decolonize the minds. And that's why even in our school, we are learning our mother tongue. You can see I am speaking English fluently, which is not my language. So yeah. That is that's the what can I say, the environment that we've grown up in, where you're learning English even as a first language.
Yeah. Well, thank you for speaking English, because I would not have any.
There's the advantage.
So
well, I need to teach you. You need to return the favor. You need to learn Kikuyu. You need to learn Swahili. Yes, Kikuyu.
Okay.
That's my. Yes.
I do know Sawubona, so that's as far as I can go.
Is that Zulu?
Yes.
Yes. Sawubona.
So what I'm going to do is I have some cards here, and I'm going to make 4 piles in front of me. So Jewel and Wanjiru, which number pile would you like me to take? 1, 2, 3, or 4?
4.
4. Okay.
Yeah.
And I've now got 2, 4, 8 cards here. So Sequoia and Gumi, which number between 1 and 8 shall I choose?
3.
Is that a joint choice? So number 3, are you going to go with number 3? Yes. Okay. Oh my word! This is incredible, Dr. Utheri. You're not going to believe this. So this is the card we've learned.
Oh wow!
So the card is learning, and the first question is this: what does learning mean? And what does it look, feel, and sound like? So who would like to contribute first? What does learning mean?
Okay, so from my perspective,
Before you turn your mic on, feel free to talk to each other to agree what you're going to say. That's fine too.
okay, so on my perspective, learning is the act of one person teaching another person more about the world and more what they need to know. And then, yeah, that's what I think learning is.
Okay. So, and by the way, you're allowed to agree or disagree or add to what you've heard. So any of those things is good.
I think learning is the acquiring of information.
Okay. And maybe not just information, right? Because you can learn how to play football.
I think that learning is acquiring knowledge and new things.
Jewel and Wanjiru, if you could get closer to the mic somehow, please, because I'm not quite hearing you.
I think
We're not getting you.
I think
Yeah.
that if in
No, we can't hear. Maybe you can use the chat if that's easier, if there's a problem with the microphone. Anybody else? So what we've heard so far is that it's about one person giving knowledge to another person. It's about acquiring information, and it's about knowing something or being able to do something that you couldn't do before. Is there anything else to add to that? Okay, so with the metaphor or the example, what image comes to mind when you think of the word learning, or what sound comes to mind, or what feeling comes to mind when you think about the word learning?
The feeling that comes to the mind when you think about learning is the feeling of curiosity, hunger to know more. You're not sure what you're going to know. As I say, every day is a learning day. So you never know what you learn, but you're just curious to know what you learn.
Curious is a brilliant word, isn't it? And I love, I was with my grandson recently, and he's 4, and he just has one word that he repeats so often. You can guess what it is, I think. Why? Why? And so we've had in the chat as well there that learning is inquiring knowledge about new things or getting better at something. And it says every day is a learning day. What a beautiful phrase that is. So going back to the metaphors and the examples, what other words come to mind? What do you feel when you think about learning, or what image comes to mind, or what sound comes to mind?
The image that will pop up in my mind is sitting in a class that even
Yeah, a classroom. And that's, Agonga, that's really interesting, because we're living in a world now where, look at us, we're not in this, you are, but I'm not. And increasingly, communication is not with everybody in one place at one time in order to learn. Learning is sometimes taking place online. It's also taking place where people are learning at different times from each other. So things are changing very much from the traditional way of a classroom in many environments. What else? What sound comes to mind when you think about learning?
Excuse me.
Yes, Abdul.
What I think about knowledge is that when knowledge comes to mind, it's priceless.
It is. You're absolutely right. And yet now I wonder how AI will change this and how already the internet will change this. Because when I was your age, knowledge was power. And like Abdul has said, knowledge was priceless. And it would be somebody like Teacher Baraka, he would be the only person that had the knowledge. And we students totally depended on Teacher Baraka for him to give us the knowledge that he had. Whereas now, things are different, right? Because we can go and find the knowledge that Teacher Baraka has on the internet a lot more easily than when I was your age. And so perhaps as the years go forward, the role of what we call teacher now will change from being the person that has the knowledge and gives it to you, and instead is the person that motivates and inspires you to go and find the knowledge yourself, which is quite a different role. So perhaps learning and learning environments will change quite a lot in the rest of my lifetime and the lifetime ahead of you. So there's next question on the card, and I'll choose some of these at random. Where have you noticed a lack of learning? So are there any examples that you can think of where learning has been absent or missing?
Yes. Where learning has been absent is during the colonial period.
Well, tell us more, Abdul.
You see, during the colonial period, it was once against the law to teach or even to teach and teach Black people how to read and write.
Wow. Thank you.
For us, I don't think there's any point of this world where you've not learned from since the moment you are born, like learning how to breathe, learning how to walk. You've always been learning something, even during the colonial system, during the colonial times. People learn how to shoot, people learn how to do things. So in this world, I doubt there'll be at one point whereby learning will stop or somebody will stop learning.
Could you just say that again, please? Because so I'm just thinking about what you're saying about at some point people will stop learning. Is that what I heard?
I said I don't think people will ever stop learning. Or somebody will find a place where they will stop learning.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. And yeah, it's you know, the pace of knowledge is so fast now that I heard a statistic today that children your age, you know, 60% of the jobs that you will fill when you leave school and you go into the workplace don't even exist right now. And I saw an advert, this was a couple of years ago, but it was for a drone flying instructor. Now, when I was your age, there was no such thing as a drone, and so there could not possibly be anything like a drone flying instructor. And so just imagine, so we've got 2, 4, 6, 7, 8, 10 of you. So 4 of you might do jobs that currently exist, and 6 of you are likely to do jobs that we don't even know about yet. That's really quite weird. And so probably learning is going to become more important than it's ever been before, because what we know today can be redundant tomorrow. And so if we don't keep continually learning, we're going to get left behind. Any other examples of where learning has been absent?
Excuse me,
Yes, Abdul.
I forgot to say something. What I wanted to say is, people these days are saying rumors about scientists in Russia or US creating brain chips.
Okay. So what is it about them creating brain chips?
Like instead of actually learning and developing your mind, it's like a little software connected to your brain where it sends all the knowledge to your mind.
Yeah. So it's a little bit like a plug-in, right?
Yes.
So can you imagine it might be that one day we're able to just go and buy, like we buy I don't know, an MP3, and we just add it on, and all of a sudden you know all about colonialism in Kenya, and you don't have to read the books and listen to the videos or watch the videos. You just plug it in and you've got it there. I wonder how far away we are from that.
If you ask me, I don't think that such a thing will be possible, because if you look at the human mind, it sends a lot of signals everywhere. It's a very powerful body part, one that cannot be replaced. So to be able to feed it with information will require a very advanced type of machine. The machine should probably be more advanced than the human brain itself. What I doubt, the human brain can create something more powerful than itself.
Well, we'll see. Today I saw a video of a wheelchair robot that had been built, and it could be operated by the person in the wheelchair by their thought. So they would think about it moving forward, and it would be able to receive those signals and be able to move in that direction. So I'm not sure if it's Sequoia or if it's Gumi, but I think we probably don't understand how fast we are going forward with the capability. Because if somebody said to you 5 years ago, there would be a device like ChatGPT, maybe we would not have believed it. But it's the same as when my grandmother, if somebody had said to her there would be a television with color on it, she wouldn't have believed them. So all the way through the generations, things are invented that surprise us and that we just didn't realize or think would be possible before. And that's the beauty of learning, isn't it? That if you are open-minded to the things that perhaps you think are impossible, then realize that they can become possible. And what about, so we've had some examples of when learning has been missing or absent. What about, and this is a bit of a loaded question, I guess, so don't feel any pressure here, but when have you experienced learning? Dr. Utheri is going to be listening intently now.
For me, I have experienced learning everywhere. For example, as Bumi's earlier point said, wherever we go, there's learning. So, for example, I could even be playing football and I learn a new trick, or I could be cooking and I learn a new recipe. So, wherever we go, it's a learning experience.
That's a really, sorry, go ahead.
Pardon?
You're on mute on Dr. Utheri's phone.
Like I started learning since I started knowing things. For example, when I learned how to walk, how to brush my teeth, how to eat properly, and how to write, and now I'm here learning new things.
Fantastic. And you've reminded me of just yesterday, I became aware of, it's called Coder Dojo, and it is a club for young people to learn how to write computer code. And this was set up a few years ago. And they were talking to, or the guy that
You can just use your computer as for visual. Then when you're talking, I just put my phone here. Baraka, people like Wanjiko, Matungi.
on the Dr. Utheri, just so you know, the phone is on speaker at the moment. So I was just explaining that this Coder Dojo is basically a big global club for young people that want to learn how to write code. And what the guy was saying is that, you know, their job is to create the right environment for the young people to feel that they have the opportunity to apply what they want to apply and to try and experiment and get things wrong and eventually find solutions to problems that they've identified. And there was one guy, 14 years old, and he lived in an area where there wasn't very much rain. And so the local government had decided that they would issue a fine to people that were using water for their garden when they shouldn't be doing. And so he used moisture sensors in the ground connected to the weather forecast in order to be able to tell his mother when she could water the garden without the risk of receiving a fine. And then he connected it to his social media so that he told all of the neighbors as well. And he was asked, what did he learn from the project? And he said that he learned how important it was to be kind and give reciprocity. So what a brilliant learning for a 14-year-old rather than, you know, learning the dates of some war or something else happening. Okay, so what else about when you've experienced learning? We've heard the example of, you know, from when you started to know things. We've heard about learning to walk. We've heard about learning new tricks. What else?
Excuse me. I'd like to say.
Yes, sir.
I'd like to say, sometimes you even learn without knowing.
Yeah.
Especially dealing with your immune system. For let's say you get a disease without you knowing, your immune system fights. It will learn how to fight the disease when it next comes. Learning is not only what you know, but also what you don't know. Your body, what it's doing currently. Maybe your body is learning new things to do, but you don't know that the body has learned something new. So it's very difficult, I doubt even possible, for you to find a situation whereby you're not learning anything.
I think it's a great point. And I remember a conversation with a guy that I met him in a bar in China, and he had moved to China 25 years before. And I don't know why he was actually leaving the country that day to go to another country, and he was leaving China forever. And what he said to me, I'll remember this for the rest of my life. And he said, I know less about China today than the day I arrived 25 years ago. So what he was saying is, to your point, Abdub, about how we don't know what we don't know until we start to understand that we didn't know it. Another example of this is none of you will be able to drive a car yet, probably, but when you first learn how to drive a manual car, it's a really uncomfortable feeling because you're sitting in the driver's seat, but you don't know where you're supposed to put your feet and what things you're supposed to move with your hands. And so you just have no clue. You can't learn it on your own. And it's only when somebody explains to you what you don't know that you're then able to start to learn how to do it. So Abdub, I think that's a really wise point that you've made. And the other thing as well is that, you know, if you think about, well, let's play a game. If you imagine 100% is what exists, right? That's 100% what exists. What percentage do you think is what we know? Of 100% that exists, what percentage is it, do you think we know?
As for me, I'll say it will be barely nothing, like 0 point, as many zeros as you can put.
Okay.
And put a 1 there at the end.
Yeah, it's an interesting one, isn't it? Because just because you don't know it doesn't mean to say it doesn't exist.
I would like to say that out of all the things we know about even our own body, or even the brain, we barely know anything, even 0.1%.
Yeah.
We are yet to discover more.
Yeah. And even if you take it to our planet, you know, it makes me amused when we're sending rockets into space, and yet we don't understand what's in our oceans yet. So what's that all about? So anyway, the point here is that, and I think a couple of you have got some feedback going somewhere, I'm not sure where. Abdul, is that you? Go on mute, Abdul, that might get rid of it. It's still there. I think it's because I don't know if I can put you on mute here. Yeah, there you go. So a couple of you have mentioned, you know, 0.00 whatever it is, but I think what we can probably agree is that what we don't know is a lot more than what we do know. And again, if you think back to somebody who used the word curiosity earlier, in that situation, why would we not be curious? You know, if so much of what exists is unknown, then surely the best thing to be is curious. Now, in ValuesJam, in this game, there's also the opportunity to ask our own question about learning. And so I'd like to invite you, if you're in pairs, just have a quick conversation, and the first person to come up with a question, that's what we will explore and consider. So think of your own question about learning, beginning with who, what, where, when, why, or how. And don't rush, just take your time, have a chat if you're with somebody else. What question would you like to ask? And if, when somebody's ready, come off mute and ask the question.
Excuse me.
Yes.
I have a question.
You've got a question, Apple?
Will it ever reach a point that will stop because of hostile situations?
Yeah, we didn't get you. Oh, so there's more in the chat. Oh, right, okay. Yeah, Abdul, we didn't quite catch that very clearly. I'm not sure if you can either go to Dr. Utheri's device if she's near, or if you can use the chat.
Yeah.
I'm saying I'm saying that will it ever reach a point where in hostile situations education will stop?
Say it one more time, sorry.
I'm saying, will it ever reach a point where education stops because of hostile situations?
Okay, what does everybody think? Sequoia and Gumi, you're on mute if you were wanting to say something. Okay.
No.
So will learning ever stop?
Excuse me?
Yeah.
Why is it when we like learn something new, like maybe in school, we forget it like in a period of like 1 to 2 months?
Now that's a great question. So we've had, will learning ever stop? And now we've got, why do we forget stuff that we've learned? So anybody got any answers?
So I think it's because you are introduced to more new things. Like there are probably plenty in the world. So the ones that probably you've learned in 2023, then you go back to 2015, you are like, I just learned this, but I've forgotten it. So yeah, that's what I think.
Yeah, and maybe there's something about using the knowledge as well. So something that helps you remember is when you use it on a regular basis. So earlier, you know, we were talking about languages, weren't we? And I remember at school when I studied French up until I was 18, and then I didn't study French at all, and I didn't speak French, and now I've forgotten, I don't know how much of what I learned. So using the knowledge is another way. So who was it, Agengo, when he was talking about learning a new football trick, if he learns the trick but then doesn't practice it, then he's going to not be able to do it. And what about Abdub's question about, will we ever stop learning?
Excuse me.
Yes.
I was asking a question if you would rather consider it that it's better to learn from nature and your environment, or it is better to learn in a class where there is a teacher and students?
Great question. What do you think?
I was thinking that it's better to learn with nature and the environment, because you will learn the changes, and if you really learn through nature, you will notice things that other people who have learned from a class won't notice.
That's a fantastic point. I'm aware of a school in Bali in Indonesia, and the way that they work with nature is that the students design the menu that is served to the students at the school, and then they do the deal with the local farmers to buy the produce to make the food, and then they learn about how the food is grown and how to make it sustainable and how to buy at the right price in order to be able to feed the students. And they also cook the food as well. So that just feels like a much more interesting learning environment than sitting in a classroom looking at some slides given to you by a teacher. So I think I agree with you about how learning in nature will be so much more interesting. Any other views on that? Teacher, let's ask you that question, because you're somebody who teaches in the classroom, right? What do you think about learning in nature?
So I think each of them complement each other. There's no, as you live, you have to pass through education system so that you can fit in the social world. But still, is essential to have the knowledge that you get from nature. There are things that you are not taught in school, but you see that you have that knowledge. There are things that you don't need a person to tell you to do it, but you still get that knowledge from just nature. I think each of them is equally important. They complement each other. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a really good answer. And Jewel and Wanjiru?
Yeah, we have a question.
What is it?
So people say that we learn to get more knowledge and to expand our amount of knowledge, but what really is the aim of learning? Why was it invented?
What a brilliant question. Anybody got any answers to that question? So what is learning for? What's the purpose of learning?
Well, I think learning was invented by a couple of guys who just thought it would be good to teach the information that they have to children, that's so they can keep passing out the information.
Yeah, and again, that might have been relevant 100 years ago when things didn't change very much. But now, when things are changing so fast, it's kind of, why learn something that's going to be irrelevant tomorrow? So it's a really interesting question about how fast can we learn in order to keep up with what is changing all around us. Now, this has just been, I've been so pleased. At the beginning, I was thinking, I wonder if they're going to be okay with this, and if people are going to want to join in. And you certainly have. I've really enjoyed how insightful the questions have been and how you've all wanted to make a contribution. So thank you so much. But there's one final piece before I hand over to Dr. Utheri. We won't do it on the call, but perhaps what you could do is do this either today or tomorrow. This is the final question for a ValuesJam. What are you encouraged to do differently about learning as a result of our conversation? And perhaps maybe I could put Dr. Utheri on the spot here and hear her answer to this question, and then maybe she would like to hear from you tomorrow or sometime what your answers are. So I'll just repeat it one more time. What are you encouraged to do differently about learning as a result of our conversation today? Dr. Utheri, would you like to finish with your answer to that?
Yes, but before I finish, could Baraka also? Baraka is their class teacher and also our head of English and literature. Baraka, what are you encouraged to do differently as a result of our conversation? And then I will also give my answer.
Thank you.
So I have learned to embrace all learning techniques, whether from class or any other. I have learned that learning can happen through any medium, and it's a process that is going on and on. So what I'm going to do different is that I'm going to encourage these learners to know that every moment they get is a learning moment. Wherever they go, whatever they do, they learn something. They make sure they learn something everywhere they go, because every day, every moment is a learning moment. Yes.
Thank you, Baraka. And you've reminded, yesterday I had a conversation with some people. They had invented some technology for, do you have a forklift truck, right? So it's a truck that lifts up big, heavy things. And they had put some technology on it, which meant that it could understand the size and the weight of the package that it was about to lift up. And so listening to Baraka, we have sensors on us, right? We have our eyes and our ears and our nose and our hands and our skin. And so all the time we have the ability to take in data and learn. So Baraka, that you just brought that image for me. So Dr. Utheri, what about you? What are you encouraged to do differently about learning?
I'm just amazed at the power of just throwing a question out there and hoping or having or trusting, not hoping, trusting that you will get feedback, you'll get an answer back. Because the conventional teacher, I can swear majority of teachers would teach what learning is. But what the technique we've used today is to keep asking. We just started asking just openly what is learning. And from that answer led more questions, more conversation. And what it does for the brain and for the child is help them to think critically on their own, independently. And I think thinking critically and creatively, you don't learn it through theory. It just happens through the tools and the techniques that we expose children to. So guys, I'm really proud of you. Some of you are very quiet, but I think there's also learning in silence.
Yeah.
So everyone here mattered, everyone here, you know, put their best forward. And for all those who spoke, thank you for teaching us. Thank you very much. It was wonderful. I didn't even know there's a brain chip for my head. And I liked what Gumi said, that you mean my mind can create something greater than my mind. So I think I'm comforted to imagine that my mind is more superior than what I'll ever make. I'll always be the master of my mind. So back to you, Alan. Thank you very much for this opportunity. I think we should do it again with a different cohort.
Yeah,
it would be
I'd
wonderful.
love to do it again. And guys, you can tell all of your friends that you are now a values jammer.
Values jammer.
Right, well, I'm gonna stop recording now. So thank you.